Great. Good evening, everybody. My name is Roger Enriquez. I am the executive, or excuse me, the chairman of the board for the Balcones Heights Economic Development Corporation. And the presentation today or this evening is really focused primarily on the Wonderland of the Americas Mall and that project and how the EDC in concert with obviously the city of Balcones Heights, the mayor and city council, from basically transitioning the Wonderland of the Americas into a civic asset. I think it's important to kind of start off by saying that tonight is really about a strategic reset. Balcones Heights did not invest in Wonderland to play the same mall leasing game as commercial real estate developers might. It was confronted with a situation back in 2021, and the leadership at that time uh, felt that it was necessary for an intervention to take place, and they provided some rescue capital using the mechanism of the EDC, which is a Type B Economic Development Corporation, and they had to step in to prevent a distressed or potentially speculative ownership change that could really alter the calculations of how the mall contributes to the city, because it is the largest generator of both sales tax and ad valorem tax. So this presentation is an attempt to frame the shift from sort of what it used to be, which was a single use retail asset, to a civic mixed use platform that is governable, financeable, and phased. I also want to recognize the indispensable team that helped us kind of put all of this together. These are, of course, none bigger than P3 Markets, Juan Saldana, P. Gain, Roger Steiger, PMA, the folks over there, and BKL Architecture. All of these individuals and organizations were very instrumental in putting this forward, as well as our other, what I call legacy partners in the Wonderland of the Americas investment. Those stakeholders were critical and remain critical in keeping the asset functioning day by day, including the leasing and property operations. All the folks over at Wonderland are doing a good job maintaining that asset. All right. So without further ado, I want to kind of start off with a short video, actually. Now, this is a YouTube video that you can access through YouTube yourselves. But I thought it would be interesting to share this as part of our presentation, because I think it does a very good job of sort of setting the stage for what is to come as part of any future mall development. So let me see if I can also do this as well. All right, I think that should do it. Give it just a second.
Step into the shopping center of the future, a world filled with exciting ideas.
Since they started popping up in the 1950s, malls have been the quintessential American shopping experience. Bustling temples dedicated to the wonders and excesses of retail, food service, and entertainment, the rise of the mall coincided with the growth of the suburbs.
The heyday of the malls really is the 1970s, sometimes referred to as the malling of America. They really thrived at providing some sort of public gathering space, some sort of social life, in addition to actually giving people places to shop.
Over the past few decades before then, lots of developers were building malls, and it kind of coincided with the growth of highways. So as more people started traveling and interstates started being built, developers really wanted to put something to attract people to stop.
Take a look at an average American mall today, however, and you'll see a very different picture. Closed stores and empty hallways became the norm in many malls even before COVID-19 delivered them another set of problems in 2020. So, what happened? This is the story of the rise and fall of American malls.
So that sets the stage, I think, very appropriately. The mall obviously still has activity and value, but that whole structure is under pressure, not just here, but nationally. The point is not to, insult the mall or to say, well, this is a flawed model. It's just merely to acknowledge that the market has moved on. And our job now is to convert foot traffic, location, and public investment into a durable civic and economic engine. All right. So we know the past. Wonderland of Americas was built for a retail era that, quite frankly, no longer exists. A single-use commercial mall uh, dependent on traditional retail leasing, passive ownership, private market assumptions is just structurally misaligned with today's economic realities. It's important to note that communities require something that is not fragile or volatile because we're dealing with public investment here. So the mid-century formula model is obsolete, right? In 2026, there's more volatility. Online consumers, shopping, and a number of different things, higher capital needs, the cost of maintaining. There aren't as many traditional anchors as there once was. So when the public has real money at risk like they do now, hope that leasing market might save us is just not really a strategy. Quite frankly, we really need to think in a whole other direction. So what would success look like? Well, ideally, it would be a plan with multi-party buy-in that would create a path to a right-sized market that's risk adjusted and governable asset and financeable. Obviously, if we can't get folks to invest, we're going to, no matter what the plan is, we're not going to be successful. So this means an operating budget that is both realistic, controls on decision making, clear reporting, phased redevelopment path that doesn't require a single big bang bet. But most importantly, that plan must protect the Balcones Heights taxpayers and strengthen the city's long-term revenue base, sales tax, property tax growth over time, and community value that attracts partners, not predators, partners. Great. So in the end, what we're really saying here is that Wonderland must become an amenity to the citizens of Balcones Heights and the envy of all other suburban cities, an asset that will enhance the quality of life in a fiscally responsible way. Now, this transition can only happen if the pathway to achieving that change is clear. A place where residents in the region come for services, learning, events, mobility, and commerce. But these civic visions can fail when they're not tied to funding and governance and sequencing. So the key point here is we only get the transition if we can clearly connect funding sources to vetted uses through a realistic implementation plan. So what do we have now? Well, it's roughly 34 acres, 895,000 square feet. According to Bear Appraisal, it's valued at around $22 million. There's about 98 tenants, and as you can see on the right, there's access nodes and connection modes. There's tremendous access and there's tremendous connections. If you look at the vehicle counts from I-10 and 410, I mean, and they're in the hundreds of thousands of folks that drive through here all the time. So the city cannot be boxed in by long-term terms that prevent phasing. We're not going to allow that. We need to be nimble. That doesn't, I want to stress something very important though. That doesn't mean we can ignore the tenants and the rights that those tenants have. It means that we need to structure the portfolio so we can do redevelopment in parts on a timeline. No frozen zones. We also need to acknowledge use restrictions and just the operational realities. The transition has to protect current cash flow where possible while creating release valves for phased development. It has to be orchestrated. So the reality check is this. We all know that retail alone cannot carry the asset. Those days are over. Market conditions, capital requirements, governance constraints demand a different approach. We have to prioritize stability, flexibility, and public purpose over a speculative at best upside. Why? Well, because retail cash flow gets eaten up by capital. You can't just rely on it because as soon as it comes in, it goes right back out. Debt service, tenant improvements, especially in older buildings like Wonderland of the Americas. So the result is predictable: slow decision making, inconsistent reinvestment. A civic asset strategy prioritizes stability first, anchors that won't disappear every cycle. Then you layer private market activity on top of that stability. We think that that would be a key part of the strategy moving forward. Now, the next slide is a site plan, but I don't want folks to kind of get alarmed or anything. The reason is that this is a visioning exercise. And for example, on the left hand, you can see pictures or renderings of Highland Mall in Austin, Texas. We can talk about that, down the road, but as you can see that we're not only looking at the Wonderland property, but when Mayor approached the folks at VIA, they said, hey, include us in that as well. Just, use it as a true visioning exercise. So this is here to show that we're not inventing a fantasy, right? The graphics on the left-hand side show you that was Highland Park Mall mall that basically had been abandoned and now is a thriving campus because of the presence of the Austin Community College. So, converting a declining mall format into an education slash civic anchor with surrounding mixed use redevelopment, there's precedent for that. It's consistent. It's obvious that we need a strong anchor and a clear phasing plan. And obviously, that's what this is one version of that. The goal is not to copy and paste what other cities have done. It's to borrow that logic, the same logic that they deployed, and use it uh, here in Balcones Heights. The next slide is just some of the variables that the folks at PMA, BKL, and P3 analyzed. The leases and all that, and sales tax receipts, etc. Many, many things. To come up with a sort of phasing approach. We can tell we're attempting to treat Wonderland like an investment grade problem. Data first, then concept, then phasing, then financing. Because if a variable is wrong, especially things like lease horizons or capital condition, everything downstream then collapses. And we don't want that. So this is the discipline checkpoint. We needed to check the variables, see what the data tells us, and then begin the process of formulating a way of moving forward. So what are those phases? Well, plot one envisions sort of a higher education or civic partnership plot, right? Potentially the integration of a multi-purpose transportation center with garage located in the heart of the redevelopment in partnership with Via Metropolitan. The major civic anchor logic is deliberate. The daily activity around either an institution of higher education or a transportation center creates a reason to be here every day and unlocks densification. Housing, hospitality, they all get layered where that market supports it. Each phase should be evaluated for return on investment, public benefit, and feasibility. And then and only then can it be advanced when those preconditions are met. So, what is sort of, if we want to call it, the new model? Well, the new model requires a transitioning from a commercial real estate play to a civic asset using mixed use economics. That means the city is not passively waiting for retail leasing to rescue the site. Instead, we use publicly anchored functions to stabilize demand, then invite private investment into a clearer, low risk framework. Governance matters here. Predictable decision making, consistent reporting, and municipal control over the direction are what makes credible partnerships possible. As I mentioned before, Wonderland 2.0, if we call it that, and with the transportation center slash garage concept, is opens the door to this densification. It's not about building a monument. This isn't meant to be, oh, look at this wonderful thing, right? It will be wonderful, but the reality, it's about unlocking land efficiency. Parking gets consolidated. Surface lots become developable pads. Multiple users share infrastructure across the day. Commuters, students, shoppers, visitors, and residents. This is how you convert a sea of asphalt into real tax base and civic activity without breaking the site operationally overnight. I think this is the true test and the true upside to this whole project. So what are, again, this is a visioning exercise, folks. We're not, but so we didn't, we wanted to throw things out, but we also wanted to be cautious. Every one of these categories must be right-sized to the market. Housing can't be forced. It must pencil out. Hotel feasibility must be validated professionally. Retail and food need to be calibrated to the trade area. This cannot be an exercise in wishful thinking. The consistent principle is phasing. Don't overbuild, don't overpromise, and don't create stranded assets. Build what the market will support after the civic anchor improves the site's fundamentals. More potential uses. These are the stabilizers. Higher ed, for example. This could be a serious anchor candidate because, again, it creates daily predictable demand and can reuse existing structure intelligently. County city services and a library style community hub strengthen the public resort function of the site. Medical outpatient is plausible given proximity to the medical center, but it requires more evaluation. And of course, the other uses on that list matter because activation is not decoration. It's how we keep people coming while phasing redevelopment. And that's really what it's about. It's the heart and soul of Balcones Heights. We want things that are cost efficient and high impact and uses that bring people together. And you have a variety of those to look at, to choose from. So let's look at these categories one by one. These aren't final by any stretch, right? But kind of where we're at right now. They keep the conversation grounded in what actually fits and leases. All right. So retail, obviously, there's a possibility there. Hotel or hospitality. Probably will also need a market study for what could work here. Multifamily, offices, macro conditions are not favorable. It's a great many people who still haven't returned to the office. Do we really need all that office space? Medical office, possible, further evaluation required. And then other uses. Here, institutions of higher education provide a potential prototype in the sense that we can emulate what they did at Highland Mall, relocating some city and Bexar County offices there and other agencies there. And then lastly, a community library like a bibliothèque as a community hub connected to food, activated outdoor gathering space, and playground. So what is this path? Well, first, ownership must be stabilized. And thankfully, I think we're working on that and making some real progress. Governance must be formalized. That too is part of that process. A sound plan solidified. We have to work with our partners in order to come up with what that plan looks like. We have to continue conversations with higher ed, understand why this hasn't come to fruition. Secure Opportunity Zone 2.0 status for Balcones Heights. We are one of the census tracts that qualifies, so we will make sure that that application makes it to the governor. Engage retail broker to conduct gap analysis to identify what tenants are not in the market and how we can entice them to come to this location. And then a hotel market study and a multi-family market study. So these are part of the path forward. And it's important to note here that we're looking for partners aligned with Civic asset strategy, institutions and operators who bring stability, services, and long-term commitment. The city's leverage is the site, the public purpose, and the ability to coordinate. Our credibility comes from governance, discipline, and clarity in what we can offer. Space, phasing, and a predictable process. These are the value adds that the EDC and the city can provide. So what is the bottom line? We want something that is right-sized, governable, financially disciplined asset that serves residents first and grows the tax base responsibly. The city already made a major stabilization investment when it injected $5 million worth of rescue capital. Now we have to protect it. Next slide. So how do we do that? Well, we put in place an investment strategy that is both realistic and durable. I want to stress that this is not anti-development. Quite the opposite. It's pro-development, but with guardrails. We need to stabilize, formalize control, align partners, and phase redevelopment. Balcones Heights will end up in a stronger community asset, stronger fiscal future, without jeopardizing public dollars. So, this was a kind of a 30-minute rundown of where we're at with the mall. We still have a long way to go, but I believe that we are on the right trajectory. If you have any questions, please just feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to try to answer them. Thank you very much, and God bless.